The 2016 election, wow, remember that? It seems like just yesterday, and one figure from that whole whirlwind is back, and maybe, just maybe, the stakes are even higher this time around. We're going to do a deep dive today into third-party candidates and how much of an impact they can actually have on an election. In this case, the 2024 election.
Yeah, and get this, the person we're going to be zeroing in on is none other than Jill Stein.
Yeah.
You know, the Green Party candidate a lot of people remember from back then.
Exactly, and we've got this really interesting article from the Daily Beast that breaks down her current campaign and all the controversy that seems to follow her.
And you're not going to believe this, but the biggest voices speaking out against her running are actually coming from her own family.
Oh, come on, you're kidding, right?
Nope. Her sons actually tried to convince her not to run.
No way.
Yeah. And one of them even told the New York Times point blank that they asked her to sit this one out. They just don't support her political ambitions.
Wow, that's got to be tough. Talk about some family drama, huh? But I think this story goes a lot deeper than just family disagreements.
Oh, for sure. The Democrats are keeping a very, very close eye on Stein's campaign. And let me tell you, they're not happy about it.
I bet. It's all about the spoiler effect, right?
You got it. Basically, the spoiler effect happens when you have a candidate, usually from a third party, who pulls in just enough votes to tip the scales, even if most people actually prefer a different candidate.
So in this case, the Democrats are worried she's going to pull votes from Kamala Harris, especially in those states that could go either way. And that could, give Trump the upper hand.
Exactly. And this isn't just some far-fetched idea. Look at what happened in 2016. It's not that far in the past.
Yeah, I mean, she got almost 1.5 million votes across the country.
And, sometimes those votes are all it takes, especially in close races.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and back in 2016, in a couple of key states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, the number of votes she got was actually bigger than the margin that Trump won by.
So you're saying that theoretically she could have actually tipped the scales?
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, did she accidentally help put Trump in the White House?
It's definitely something to think about. And, this is even more interesting because Trump himself has actually talked about Stein's potential influence. Didn't he say something about how he kind of likes having her in the race?
Oh, he did. At a rally earlier this year, he said he likes her very much because, and I quote, she takes 100% from them, meaning the Democrats.
Yeah, so he's definitely aware of that spoiler effect we talked about. And it seems like the Democrats are too, because they're not messing around. They've gone all out with attack ads against her.
Yeah, I saw those billboards too. Pretty intense, right? Jill Stein helped Trump once. Don't let her do it again.
Ouch. That's got to sting a little.
I think it just goes to show how worried they are. They're trying to hammer home the idea that a vote for Stein is basically a wasted vote.
But it's not just the Democratic Party itself. There are all these independent groups that are really going after her, too.
Right, like this group called Abandon Harris. The name kind of says it all.
Yeah, I don't think they're big fans of the vice president.
Not really. They've actually gone ahead and endorsed Stein. They even had this whole rally in Michigan where she was the main speaker.
So you've got the Democrats and then these independent groups all basically trying to make Stein out to be this spoiler who could help Trump win again. But what does Stein have to say about all of this? I mean, how does she respond to this?
Well, she says that she had nothing to do with Trump winning in 2016. And she says she doesn't run her campaigns based on trying to take down a specific candidate.
Yeah, she's always saying that she's just running on her own platform and representing what the Green Party stands for. It's not about taking down any particular candidate, right? Just offering people a different choice.
That's what she says. And, I mean, you could say she has a point there. But, if she knows she can't actually win, then what's the point of even running in the first place?
It's a good question, and it kind of gets at why she's such a polarizing figure, don't you think?
Absolutely. She's definitely someone people have strong opinions about. I think what's really interesting here is that her campaign really taps into this feeling of disillusionment that a lot of voters have.
You mean those voters who feel like neither the Democrats nor the Republicans really get them, right?
Yeah, exactly. They want something different, something new, a real break from the establishment. And they're willing to vote for that, even if it means maybe helping a candidate they don't totally agree with.
And so they turn to Stein and her focus on those issues that the big parties tend to brush aside.
Right, like environmental protection, social justice, and taking on corporate power, things like that. Those are issues that really resonate with some voters, and they see Stein as someone who's speaking for them.
Yeah, I get that. But, she's running in a system that's pretty much built for just two parties. Let's face it, her chances of winning are, well, pretty slim.
Realistically, yeah, you're right. And I think that's what makes this whole thing so complicated. It's like this dilemma for voters who like what Stein's saying, but also know that voting for a third-party candidate could have some unintended consequences.
So it's like this tug of war between sticking to your ideals and being pragmatic about the political reality.
Exactly. It's like, do you vote for the candidate who really reflects your values, even if they're a long shot? Or do you hold your nose and vote for the lesser of two evils just to stop the candidate you really don't want from winning?
It's a tough choice, and I'm sure it's a one that'll be on a lot of people's minds as we get closer to the election. It really highlights the power dynamics in our system.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And bringing it back to that abandoned Harris group we talked about, their involvement adds a whole other layer to this story, right?
It's pretty strange when you think about it. They're working against Harris, but they've also endorsed Stein.
Yeah. It's a weird alliance, that's for sure. The guy who founded Abandoned Harris has even said that their goal is to punish the vice president.
Yeah.
So it kind of seems like they might be more interested in hurting Harris than actually supporting Stein and what she stands for.
Yeah, so it goes beyond just policy or ideology. It's almost like using your vote as a weapon to send a message.
Exactly. And that's what makes this election so fascinating. It's not just candidates battling it out over ideas. It's this whole game of strategy and tactics.
Yeah, and right in the middle of all this, you've got Jill Stein, this 74-year-old doctor and activist, and she's not backing down.
I mean, with all the pressure from her family, the Democrats, and even people in her own party, she's sticking to her guns and running her campaign her way.
Yeah, she's definitely become this lightning rod. Some people see her as this brave voice for change, and others think she's just a reckless spoiler.
But one thing's for sure, just by being in this race, she's making us face some uncomfortable truth about our political system. She's making us rethink how elections work and the choices we make as voters.
Yeah. Doing this deep dive into her campaign has really shown me how complicated these third-party candidacies are. It's not as simple as just picking a side.
Nope, you got to think about all these different factors and consequences.
It reminds us that every vote matters. Even the ones that go to candidates who probably won't win, they can still have an impact on the final result.
The 2024 election is shaping up to be a real nail-biter, and like it or not, Jill Stein is adding to all the drama.
This deep dive has been really insightful, wouldn't you say?
Totally. We've seen how third-party candidates can shake things up, how important it is to be an informed voter, and how our personal beliefs can sometimes clash with, making strategic voting decisions.
Jill Stein might be controversial, but she's definitely making us question things about our political system and the choices we make as voters.
And as we get closer to November, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. It could have an impact not just on this election, but on the future of American politics in general.
So where does all this leave us? I mean, what does it all mean for, the average voter trying to figure out this crazy election?
I think it really just highlights how important it is to be an informed voter. Don't just follow the crowd or get caught up in all the partisan back and forth.
Right. We got to dig a little deeper.
Exactly. Look beyond the headlines, go past the sound bites, really understand what all the candidates are about, not just the two big names.
It's really easy to get caught up in the who's ahead in the polls stuff, but we can't forget about the actual issues, the things that really matter.
Right, and third-party candidates, people like Jill Stein, they often bring those issues to the forefront and kind of force the big parties to address them.
So even if someone doesn't agree with everything Stein says, her being in the race could actually make the whole conversation, more meaningful.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like they're kind of a political conscience, reminding everyone that there are other ways of doing things, other ways of tackling the problems we face.
But at the same time, we got to be realistic, right? I mean, one vote can only do so much.
Yeah, it's all about finding that balance between voting with your heart and voting strategically, I guess.
I mean, if you decide to vote for a third-party candidate, you got to know that you might actually be helping the candidate you really don't want to win.
It's a tough call, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer. It all comes down to what's important to you, your own values and priorities.
This whole deep dive into Stein's campaign has really been, it's given me a lot to think about, that's for sure. It's crazy how complicated something like this can be.
Yeah, we tend to think of elections as this simple choice between two options. But this whole story shows us that it's not that simple at all. There's all this stuff going on behind the scenes, all these different forces at play.
It reminds you that every vote really does count, and that, even the votes that go to the long shot candidates can still ripple out and affect the final result.
This election's going to be a close one, and Jill Stein, whether people like it or not, she's definitely adding to the suspense.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening. What do you think?
Totally. We've uncovered how these third-party candidates can really shake things up, how important it is for voters to really do their homework, and how our personal beliefs sometimes bump up against, the cold, hard realities of the political game.
Jill Stein might be controversial, but she's making us ask some hard questions about how our system works and the choices we make as voters.
So as we head towards November, keep an eye on this whole thing because it could have a big impact, not just on this election, but on the future of American politics as a whole. And on that note, we've got one last thought to leave you with. What if these third-party candidates, people like Jill Stein, keep gaining momentum? Could we actually see a shift away from the two-party system? Could we end up with a more diverse and representative political landscape? Something to think about as we head into this really crucial election.